So the likelihood is, if you suffer with a perfect mentality, you're going to spend the rest of your life tormented, because you're never really going to feel like you're making progression. You're going to be stuck in this place where you're constantly chasing perfection. And the thing is, this perfection doesn't even exist. So I made this video to raise awareness for men to recognize what a perfect mentality looks like versus a progressive mentality. And by the end of the video, I want you to be able to have that awareness where you can catch when you're in that perfect mentality and putting yourself under huge amounts of pressure, flick the switch inside of your head to recognize it and then step away from it to then enjoy the process again. So I would say that over 80% of the men that I work with or have come through our world have struggled with trying to chase the perfect outcome, the perfect scenario, trying to make their structures perfect, their workouts perfect, their marriage perfect, and trying to achieve that standard that for me is delusional, that doesn't exist. It can be one of the main contributors to putting monumental pressure on yourself and not being able to see the most important thing, which is you making progress. So perfection is, I think, just a word that we use to define an outcome that isn't really real. Like, what is perfect? Is this like the perfect video? Is this the perfect coat? What makes it perfect? I think it's a dialogue that we use to marry up to a standard that we've got to reach. It's an outcome that we're looking for, but the problem is that it's getting in the way of us seeing what we're achieving. So we self-judge ourselves, we compare ourselves, and we basically beat ourselves into the ground because we're not achieving perfection. We're looking for it, but we're not achieving it. So where does the perfection trap even come from? Does it come from your upbringing? Does it come from your parents? Does it come from your own mindset and the way you perceive the rest of the world? Do you watch too much content? Do we follow too many people who look like they have the perfect life by posting the best videos and the best pictures of their life? And we interpret that as perfect. So we strive for perfect. So when we think about mentality, what we're thinking about is that we want to do everything the best of our ability. When we go running, we want the best run. When we do the workouts, we want the best workouts. When we have the life, we want the best life. So we interpret that as perfect. I think sometimes if we change the narrative, then we can see more of the process and the progression. Let me give you an example. Imagine you've run half a marathon and you do it in an hour and a half, which is pretty good for a half marathon. Everyone turns around and goes, "Oh, well done, that's a great time." You'll turn around and go, "It wasn't that good." And you'll miss the progress that you've made, the whole process that you've taken to train to run that hour and a half marathon, because in your mind, it's not perfect. But what we're really saying is, you could do better. In your mind, in your gut, in yourself, you feel as though there is more potential there. So this brings me on to my second point. What's the difference between progress and perfection? So for me, progress is recognizing that you are pushing your ability of where you are right now. Let's take that running example. You get a running plan. You start running from scratch. You start improving your diet. You start planning your time better to fit in the runs. You start getting stronger. You start going to the gym to condition yourself. All of these are micro elements of progress that we're recognizing that are developing ourselves. We are growing through the process. Let's flip that to a perfect mentality. I've got to have the best diet. Every training session has to be bang on. I've got to improve my time every single time I go out. I've got to feel amazing every time I come back from my run. So the main difference between the two is the first scenario where we are recognizing the progress. We can enjoy that process. We can enjoy that progress. It improves us. We're growing. We're feeling accomplished. We're embedding our lives into this outcome of achieving a certain time at the half marathon, versus the perfection mentality where everything has to be perfect, where you put constant pressure on yourself, where nothing's ever good enough, where you self-pressurize yourself into a process that it just doesn't become enjoyable. So how do we go about changing this? One of the reasons is the reason I'm doing this video is to create awareness of what's happening inside of here. You see, a lot of professional guys are so busy and so consumed in a daily rat race that they don't realize that they're putting themselves under that huge amount of pressure with that perfect mentality. And the first thing that we can do is learn to catch those thought processes that we have that put ourselves under huge amounts of pressure. We can then flick the switch that's in our head to then turn around and change the narrative and catch yourself going, I'm thinking in a perfect mentality, step out of it, step back. And the more we can get in the habit of doing that, the more we can challenge our own mindset, the own self-pressure, the self-induced self-pressure that we put ourselves under, and the self-judgment that we constantly put ourselves under, to take off those shackles and enjoy the process so much more. The other one, which I think is so important, is to have an element of patience. And patience is just understanding about knowing what you're going to do in between the point of starting and the point of finishing. So if you are running that half marathon, it's understanding that actually this is a journey, this is a process. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be what you think your expectations are, which is why it's so important to understand your expectations, but be patient with your progress and what you're trying to achieve. Talking about all of these steps and the perfect mentality is all well and good. How can you change that habit of a lifestyle? The only way you're going to do it is by doing the reps, is by putting the work in, is by constantly reviewing and reflecting on your own narrative, on what it's feeding your brain and your mind. The more you can do that, the more self-aware you're going to be, the more likely you are to enjoy your journey. I put a video right here on managing, on mastering your expectations that will complement this video perfectly. And if you like this video, please do let me know what you think in the comments. I really appreciate your time watching. I'll see you for the next video.